Thanks, Jay. Hi, everybody. Thanks again, me again. Zoom fatigue may be getting real, but thanks for giving me a few minutes to talk a little bit about some of the logistics around the Lacunos project, particularly around data we're trying to collect and support that we're trying to offer. So next slide, please. So as you probably know, especially if you were at the August workshop, we talked more about this. But Lacunos is a research and development grant from National Science Foundation. And so that means that we are trying to develop new materials and approaches and get feedback and share them and use them and modify them. And then we're also trying to collect some data to help us generalize some of this and share out beyond the SMILE community some of what we're learning together. So of course, that means we need to collect some data, and we need your help with that, but of course we can help do this too. And that's really what the session is about, is just clarifying and going over, you may have heard some of this before, just talking about what are the different types of data we're trying to collect, what they're for, what we need from you, and then how we can support you. And then at the end, just to let you tell us a little bit, what do you need, what's reasonable. And the other thing I want to say is we recognize that this year continues to be extraordinary. We're not able to do everything we want to do. That goes for teaching, it goes for research, it goes for everything. But this is a multi-year project. So we don't need to stress, and I certainly don't want you to stress about this, and we're not stressed about it. We'll get enough of the data that we need, and we hope that next year will be a little more normal. Maybe it won't be, we'll see. But our goal for this session is to think about what's feasible this year, what data can we get, what support can we offer, and then how can we think forward from there. Next slide. So there's basically 5 kinds of data in Lacunos that we're trying to collect for different purposes. And 2 of those types of data are data from your students. And 3 of those types of data are data from you all, the teachers. So we're going to talk about the 2 things that we're trying to get from students first. And you've heard about the concept maps a few times today already. And we have done a PD recently on concept maps that some of you were at. So you probably know, and some of you are quite familiar with concept maps. Some of you are newer to concept maps. They have a long history in science ed, but they have tended to be used for fairly narrow purposes. In most of the research that's used concept maps, it's really just looking at students' conceptual understanding and what sometimes is called conceptual change. And there's a lot of research on conceptual change. It's super interesting, but there's a lot more we can do with concept maps because people have not looked at concept maps through the lens of language or through the lens of culture and community and what examples and connections students are making. So we're trying to use concept maps to look at all 3 of the strands of Lacunos, which is language development and its community and cultural connection and its knowledge building, cumulative knowledge building. And so we're hoping to collect concept maps at a couple time points each year from your students. We're hoping to get 3 maps from each club, 3 sets of maps from each club each year. But again, this year, less is fine, but we are hoping to get at least 1 set of concept maps from each club this winter, spring. And so we've designed a lot of the Lacunos lessons that you've heard about have the option to do the concept mapping activity as kind of the synthesis. And so then great question, how do you submit the concept maps? We are sending you self-addressed stamped envelopes with the materials box that is going to come out to you with the materials. And we're hoping you can then do a concept map activity, collect those maps, stick them in the envelope and mail them back to us. We think that's the easiest way. If it would be easier for you to do it through taking pictures, scanning, and sending them electronically, we can work that out, but we think mailing them back to us will be the easiest way. And so that's the concept maps, and our request is that you work with us to think about 1 activity that potentially, you could do this year with a concept map. More if you can, but if we can get 1 set of concept maps from everybody, that'll be great. The other set of data, the other data we're trying to get from students, we developed a student survey. And the survey asks students about their experiences with STEM, their interests in STEM, and any thoughts they have about the possibility of sort of STEM careers, STEM experiences, and studying STEM. Our goal, ideally, is to give this survey to students at the start of the year and at the end of the year. this year, that is probably not feasible. Well, again, we would like to try to get it done at least once from every club. We did send these out to everybody in the fall, but it's certainly possible that they have gotten away from you. You might still have a folder with them. We have more. We can certainly put together more packets and get them out to you. And those also come with a self-addressed stamped envelope. So if you can try to administer this student survey, we did shorten it. It was longer originally. We got some feedback from you all that it was too long. So we've got it down to, we think, a reasonable length. So hopefully it isn't too onerous for the kids, but it is important to try to get this way of trying to assess their experiences and their thinking about STEM. So those are the two types of data we're trying to get from students: concept maps at least once this year, surveys at least once this year. Then there are three types of data that we're trying to get from you. The most important and the most time consuming, and kind of the one that is ongoing, is doing the teacher logs when you do Lacunos activities. So you're all used to doing teacher logs for Smile. We've modified the log to add a question now that says, was this a Lacunos activity? And if you click yes, it prompts some additional questions. And so when you do a Lacunos activity, we really would appreciate it if you would do the extended version of the teacher log that has the Lacunos questions. And we have incentivized this because we know this takes some extra time. And so we've got an incentive for you when you do a Lacunos log, and we're asking and hoping moving forward, we would love it if people would do 10 Lacunos activities over the course of the year. We're going to continue to be rolling out more activities over the next couple years, so you will have more choices. There's already plenty though. There's already more than 10. A lot of them have the kind of elementary and early middle school focus, but we've talked about modifying those for secondary. We've shared those lessons through the virtual PDs. They're on the website. We're happy to do more to sort of get you up to speed on any of those lessons that you haven't gotten PD on. But we're really encouraging you to do Lacunos activities in your clubs, and when you do them, to tell us about them through the Lacunos log. And as Jay is mentioning, we're processing the first incentive pay, and we're going to go over that. So those are the logs. That's the first thing we're asking from teachers. The second thing we're asking from you is we have a demographic questionnaire for teachers that's about kind of your experience teaching and teaching STEM subjects, your educational background, and your sort of the professional development that you have access to for continuing to think about your teaching. This is pretty much a one-time thing because these answers won't really have changed. We're probably going to try to give it a second time at the end in a couple years as the project is wrapping up. But basically, most of you did this already at the August teacher workshop if you were here in person. So if you've done it, we don't need you to do it again. But some of you have not done it, and we've got a list, so we'll be following up with those of you who joined after the August workshop or weren't there to try to get this from you, because this helps us understand sort of the range. When we compile across all the teachers, we can see sort of a profile of Smile teachers and your experiences, and that's really helpful to us. So that's one thing we're trying to get from you. The second and then the final thing from teachers is, as an NSF funded project, we have our own evaluators. And of course, the evaluators are there to try to give us feedback on what we're doing to try to make it as useful and valuable as possible. So the evaluators do their own collection of data, and then they synthesize that and they share with us kind of patterns to help us get better. And so at the end of all of these workshops, I mean, you know, these days, anytime you do anything, buy anything, you get hit with the survey. Please tell us, how was your experience? And I'm sick of them. Just because I bought something from you on Amazon does not mean I want to fill out a survey, right? But this is really important to us. So I'm really asking, please, 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 when you do get these surveys for participating in these activities, we try to keep them really short and simple, but they're really valuable to us because they help us create a better product for you. So despite the fact that I hate these two, please, we encourage you to complete the survey. And in fact, that is what we're going to ask you to do in just a minute. We're going to put this link that's on this slide in the chat, and this is the link to the survey about just the Lacunos parts of the experiences that you have had today. So those are the 5 types of data that we are trying to collect in Lacunos. And in the last few minutes we have left, we are hoping to gather any thoughts, feedback from you about what seems reasonable this year and what we can do to support you. And the last thing I'll say in terms of support is we know not every school district is allowing folks to come and visit, but we are happy to come and try to take on some of this data collection and some of this support by coming to your clubs if and when that's appropriate as the year moves on. Of course, the further you are from the Valley, it gets a little bit harder for us, but we did make it out to Nissa and Ontario this year, and we plan to continue to do that. And we do want to get around and visit the clubs. And when we come, we want to help. So we're looking for your feedback on what's feasible this year in terms of this data collection and what kind of support you would need from us to try to help make it happen. So we have a Jamboard. We think that's one way to sort of collect this information. So please feel free to keep posting stuff in the chat. I'm going to shut up in a minute, and then people can also feel free to just chime in out loud. But then also on the Jamboard, which Jay is going to share in a minute, the link, maybe it's there. So please, using one of those 3 modes, share with us how we can help get some of this data collected this year. Thanks. Yes, while I've got a minute and I've got you as a captive audience, the other question I want to ask, and you can also just put this in the chat or on the Jamboard, is are there topics? So we're going to do some more of these sort of afternoon 1-hour kind of virtual PDs where we're talking about planning some more of those. Are there topics, either sort of content topics or kind of Lacunos practices topics or any other sort of topic that you would like us to develop some workshops on?